Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
Have you ever heard someone complain about restless leg syndrome? And maybe you've thought to yourself, what in the world is that? Does that mean that your legs are just kind of flailing around? I want to talk about restless legs today. Talk about statistically how many people it technically affects and what you can be doing nutritionally if you happen to be affected by this, or maybe you know someone who is. I am Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, and what we do know about restless leg syndrome is that roughly 10% of adults suffer from this in the United States. Now, when it first came out, it was quite interesting. I was actually in medical school, and I remember a pharmaceutical rep coming in with a brand new medication to target restless legs. And we were all sitting there going, what in the world is restless leg syndrome? We've never even heard of this before. And so it is a newer phenomenon, but it actually has been researched quite extensively over the past couple of decades, where they now recognize that it's actually a neurological condition that causes kind of this irresistible urge to move the legs. And this can be triggered by many different things, but we do know that it's very unpleasant and can even have like painful throbbing or pulling feelings within the legs. So the sensation that people complain about is really quite real. And what they are dealing with is incredibly problematic because it can disrupt their sleep and it can affect them throughout the day. And so I wanted to talk about what you can be doing in terms of dietary and lifestyle modifications that may help to promote more comfortable leg environment throughout the day. Now, one thing that we recognize is obviously we can always default back to the standard American diet. We know that this is a predominant factor in creating this. So when we look at the high sugar and the bad carbohydrates and starches that most Americans are consuming on a regular basis, we know that this definitely is a major problem. And which is why doctors oftentimes just turn to pharmacological agents as opposed to speaking with people about, hey, maybe change out your diet and avoid certain stimulants, things that are caffeinated. A lot of people drink caffeinated drinks throughout the day, and this may be exacerbating this, along with the really bad foods that they are eating. And exercise. This is oftentimes something that doctors just don't even address when it comes to restless leg syndrome. So they usually turn to things such as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, benzodiazepines, gabapentin, different medications are usually at the forefront, and they usually don't look at many of the natural interventions that can be very beneficial for those who are suffering from restless leg syndrome, including iron. This is a really big problem, is low iron levels. So iron deficiency or iron insufficiency can become incredibly a major factor in the role in which the pathogenesis of restless leg syndrome actually presents itself. And they have been able to indicate that those who have been diagnosed with restless leg syndrome often have a iron deficiency. And so iron supplementation is usually started with those patients. Now, the problem that lies with the iron supplementation is that they are usually giving them ferrous sulfate. And for many people, they don't respond well to this. It kind of gives you an ick belly, and it's hard to get people to adhere to this. So the compliance of ferrous sulfate is usually not really good. So that's why I turn to things like our Iron Plus HX formulation, which contains iron but as its protein form, so as bisglycinate. And this is much easier for the body to actually absorb, and it's not going to cause those GI disturbances such as that upset stomach and the constipation, a lot of the problems that go along with ferrous sulfate supplementation. So we know a lot more about restless legs now than we did many years ago when I was in medical school. They also recognize that low levels of folate may also be playing a significant role in the exacerbation of these symptoms, which is why when you're using our Iron Plus formulation, not only does it contain that iron protein, that bisglycinate form of iron, it also contains folic acid, which is really very beneficial because if you have that tendency to have that low folate, then we know that this is another main reason as to why you are suffering more of those significant symptoms. We can certainly look at things that would help to promote proper vascular flow. And so we can look at things like grapeseed extract, for example. We can look at horse chestnut, which you would find in our veins HX. So oftentimes when I've talked to people who have the issues with restless leg, that's kind of the main nutrients that I will make sure that they are on. Number one is that they're taking a good comprehensive multivitamin, such as the core multi, but then they are also taking Veins HX, 1 to 2 tablets per day, that they are utilizing our Iron Plus HX. And usually, depending upon where their serum iron levels are, it's usually maybe 1 or 2 caps per week. So not even a daily iron supplementation, but just getting that iron back in so it creates more of that balance. So, and then magnesium. We know that magnesium allows for those skeletal muscles to really have more relaxation, which is quite critical when we think about trying to be able to have a more restful night's sleep. So that's kind of the main nutrients that I go after. So magnesium supplementation, a multivitamin, Iron Plus HX, which includes that folic acid. And then also we can look at things like Veins HX or grapeseed extract would be incredibly important. So when people are dealing with these sleepless nights and disrupted sleep because of restless legs, this can then start to have an impact on their day-to-day functions. So you may find that you're having a harder time focusing throughout the day because you didn't have adequate sleep the night before. So if you're not getting restful night's sleep, this can start to spin off to many other issues. It can start to drive up higher amounts of stress, which we know is going to impact the adrenal glands. We know that this can then have an offshoot effect to your blood sugar levels. So we oftentimes see that when someone has restless legs, it's not just that. They usually have a concurrent issue with elevated stress. They have an issue with elevated blood sugar. They start to have more profound or noticeable effects when it comes to circulation issues. So targeting this with nutrients is certainly advantageous. And like I said, diet and exercise really play a really big role into managing the symptoms of restless legs. And, for some people, going in and doing acupuncture, doing massage, these can also be helpful, but we have to make sure that we are getting the right nutrients on board to really optimize the way that the skeletal muscle and the vascular system is working. And at the same time, we know that being that this is more of a neurological condition, having those nutrients on board, such as magnesium, such as folic acid, are really huge players, even the iron, when it comes to the proper neuronal connections. So there's a lot that goes to restless leg syndrome, but one thing that we do know is that if you take the appropriate steps and you are doing the right things in terms of diet, exercise, proper supplementation, you can really regulate the symptoms and get it to the point where it is not becoming a problem in your day-to-day life. So if you happen to know someone or you yourself are dealing with this, I would certainly encourage you to speak with one of our nutritional experts at any of our locations, and they will be able to give you the best guidance in terms of which nutrients, when you should take them, how much you should take them to get you on the road to health. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Invite Health podcast. Remember, you can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. Now, do make sure that you subscribe and you leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health, and we will see you next time for another episode of the Invite Health podcast.